Welcome to day 7 of Becoming a Solutions Architect in 60 Days. Today we are diving into AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM. IAM is one of the most critical components of AWS security. IAM is like the security guard of your AWS account. It determines who enters, what they can do, and what they can access. So, what exactly is AWS IAM? Imagine you own a large office building. You wouldn't want everyone walking into every room, right? Without any restrictions. Some employees should only enter specific departments, whilst others, like managers, might have broader access. AWS IAM works the same way. It controls who can do what in your AWS environment. It helps ensure security best practices, ensuring that only authorized users have the right permissions. So why is AWS so important? Let's look at some use cases here. For instance, developer versus finance team. So a developer should be able to launch and manage EC2 instances, but should not access AWS billing information. The finance team, on the other hand, should only see the billing data, but should not launch or stop a server. Suppose you have an application running on an EC2 instance that needs to store files in S3. Instead of giving it a username, password, we create an IAM role that allows the EC2 instance to interact with S3 securely. One of the best practices of IAM is never to use the AWS root user for daily operations. It's like using master key to your entire AWS account. It's too risky. If IAM is not set up properly, you risk security breaches and service failures. I once took a shortcut when migrating my monolithic applications to the cloud, thinking I skip some IAM configurations. Well, AWS laughed at me. Nothing worked. I had to delete everything and start all over again. Properly this time. AWS is strict. If your IAM policies don't allow a specific action, that action will fail, no matter how much you want it to work. Let's look at some key components of IAM. So we have IAM users that represent individuals and applications that need access to AWS. Each user gets unique credentials like a username and a password or access keys to authenticate and perform certain tasks. Some use cases of users are a developer in your company who needs access to EC2 instance to launch and manage a virtual machine, or a DevOps engineer who requires permission to configure AWS Lambda for automation tasks, or an application running on a server that needs access to S3 buckets to read and write files. We have IAM groups. So IAM groups allows you to organize users and assign them a common permissions instead of managing permissions individually. And some use cases are when you create a developers group where all developers automatically get EC2 and Lambda permissions. Also, a finance team group who can be restricted to viewing AWS billing information only without accessing to infrastructure resources. A support team group that can have read-only access to troubleshoot AWS services without making changes. IAM rules. So IAM rules provide temporary access to AWS services for users, applications, or external accounts. Unlike users, roles do not have long-term credentials. For example, a developer's applications running on an EC2 needs to securely access DynamoDB. Instead of using access keys, you assign the EC2 instance a role that automatically grants permissions. A third-party device like an auditing tool needs temporary access to your AWS account. you can create a role with limited permissions to allow access without sharing credentials. A user from one AWS account needs to access resources in another AWS account. Let's say a cross-account access. Now, IAM policies. IAM policies define what users, groups, or roles can do within AWS. IAM policies use JSON, that is JavaScript Object Notation, to specify permissions in a structured way. For example, you create a policy that allows read-only access to S3 buckets but prevents file deletion. You have a policy that grants an administrator full access to AWS resources, including EC2, RDS, and IAM itself. Another policy that allows Lambda functions to write logs to CloudWatch to prevent them from deleting logs. So in conclusion here, IAM is a fundamental security component in AWS. Understanding its structure and importance makes everything easier when setting up users, rules, and permissions.